Games, the seventh and final serial of Doctor Who Season 6, first broadcast in 10 parts between the 19th of April and the 21st of June 1969. This was actually one of the first Doctor Who stories I actually got when I started kind of collecting classic stories, but I didn't remember to kind of film a review of it at the time. I just watched it through and, well, I thought it was good. I felt possibly it was a little bit too long. I mean, 10 parts is long for a classic Doctor Who story. I mean, I think the only one that's actually longer is The Trial of a Time Lord, and that one stretches an entire series. That's 14 episodes in all, whereas this was 10. So, I felt it was okay, I just felt it was a bit long. But, kind of, whenever I would put up kind of rankings of Doctor Who classic stories, this would usually rank fairly low, which, as I said, may have been due to its length. But people would see it and like, why is War Games so long? And I was like, it's an alright story, I just thought it was a bit long, and like, it is long. But people still claimed this was one of the best stories of Doctor Who, so, like I did with The 10th Planet and Planet of the Spiders, I decided to give this one another chance. So, this is my short review of the War Games, and it is actually the last story for the second Doctor. Both the last story for the second Doctor and his companions, Jamie McCrimmon and Zoe Herriot. The Doctor, played by Patrick Troughton for the last regular time, and his companions, Jamie McCrimmon, played by Fraser Hines, and Zoe Herriot, played by Wendy Padbury, seemingly land on Earth in 1917 during the First World War, and seemingly get enrunched in trench warfare. However, they soon discover that not everything is as it seemed. The people in charge appear to be very weird, and they soon discover that this isn't actually Earth 1917 at all. This is actually an alien world, and the battleground that they're in is actually split into 12 sectors. At the centre of it all is one sector where a group of aliens known as the Warlords are overseeing everything. Their plan is to take a load of segments of a load of different wars from planet Earth, put them on one planet, and then from there they can work out which individuals are strongest and build them into an army from which they can then use to take over whole galaxies. As I said, there are 12 sectors of this planet. The middle sector is where the Warlords are doing their plans. But the other sectors include the First World War, the American Civil War, the Crimean War, the Romans, the Greeks, the Peninsular War, the Mexican Civil War, the English Civil War, the 30 Years' War, the Russo-Japanese War, and the Boer War. Okay, a load of different wars, each of them separated by a mysterious mist. And if you go through this mist, people are unlikely to follow you. If they don't want to follow you, don't plan to follow you through the mist, they aren't going to. But if you travel through the mist, you can then travel to a different sector, and a different section of war. And while they're there, they encounter a load of different characters. I mean, there are too many in this particular story to count, but the ones that I will mention here are they come across a lieutenant and a nurse in the 1917 World War I zone, one named Lieutenant Jeremy Carstairs, played by David Seville, and Lady Jennifer Buckingham, played by Jane Sherman. Both of whom, they're sceptical about the whole thing, but they're willing to give it a go. I mean, especially when they manage to cross over from the First World War zone into the Roman zone. Once they've seen that and they've seen the Romans, they're like, okay, something weird is going on here. And the other ones that I'll care to mention is the actual bad guys of the story. I mean, you've got the Warlord, the man in charge, played by Philip Maddock, who's kind of the guy in charge and the kind of big overall mastermind of the entire thing, who's like, well, this needs to be done. You got the War Chief, played by Edward Brayshaw, who is apparently, like the Doctor, a fellow rogue Time Lord, and who's really the kind of evil one of the thing. And then you've got the Security Chief, played by James Bray, who is just so much fun. I mean, he's one of these people that gradually, as things start to go wrong, he gets louder and louder and more high-pitched, like, we need to get this done! Like, no, calm down, I will not calm down! And he's just amazing to watch. I mean, like I said, the story does have a load of great characters. For example, in some of the later parts, they end up recruiting people from the American Civil War zone, and I believe a guy, I think his name is Villar, from the Mexican Civil War zone. I'm not going to attempt to do an impression of him, but he is just so much fun, and I really don't think you could get away with doing a character like him in modern Doctor Who. You just couldn't. It would possibly be seen as too offensive. But you know what? For the time they did manage to get away with this in the 1960s, it he's just a whole lot of fun. I mean, he's one of these people like, okay, we need to have a plan with this, and then he's like, screw the plan, I got guns, and he, he just cracked me up whenever he was on screen. This is also supposedly the first time we see the Doctor's race of the Time Lords and the planet Gallifrey. While it was mentioned throughout William Hartnell's era and presumably through Patrick Troughton's era, this was the first time we actually got to see Gallifrey and see how scared the Doctor was of him. I mean, when Jamie and Zoe end up asking him why he left, he was like, well, I was bored. I mean, so much of the universe out there to explore, so many planets, so many time periods. But the Time Lords insist we must stay behind. And during part 10, when they are trying to escape, they do manage to do some pretty creative stuff with this. For example, they manage to land on an ocean planet, and the Doctor's like, it'll be alright. I mean, actually remember, the TARDIS can't sink. And then it suddenly starts dripping from the ceiling. It's like, oh crap. And it's... I mean, as I said, when I first watched the story through, I thought it was okay, but possibly just a little overly long. This time I took my time with it. I allowed myself 2 episodes on the first day and then 4 episodes for the remaining 2 days, and by going through at that pace, I managed to appreciate this story so much more. We see how truly powerful the Time Lords are, that the Doctor is actually scared to call them in, even though he knows he has to do so. The war zones, each of them themselves, they've managed to do so much with the characters in so little time. 250 minutes for the 10 parts altogether, and they managed to create a story that was really good to round out Patrick Troughton's era of the show. Is it going to be my favourite? Probably not, but I probably will rank it a lot higher than I previously did. Like, with my last ranking, I think I wouldn't rank it at the absolute bottom, but with my last ranking, it went something like Warriors of the Deep, The Invasion of Time, The War Games. And people were like, well, why is The War Games so low? And I was like, well, I thought it was okay, just a bit long. But this time, I admit I was wrong. The War Games may be a long story, but it's worth every single minute of it. And it was a cracking way to end off Patrick Troughton's era of the show. Now, just before I sign off this particular review, one other piece of Doctor Who geek news I'm going to reveal. Peter Capaldi has been revealed as the Thinker in the Suicide Squad. Will he be better than Neil Sandilands? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, until then, until my next trip in the TARDIS, I'll see you later.